Crockett and Tubbs enter the world of violent erotic films in today's disturbing episode of Miami Vice. Death and the Lady was directed by Colin Buxey and was written by David Black. This is the first Miami Vice credit for both. The series is clearly bringing in some new blood for the new season, which is a good thing. This is one of those episodes that gets under the skin and sticks with you. While Vet for the Insane by Brit goth rockers Fields of the Nephilim plays, an undercover Gina and Trudy attend the award ceremony for an adult film festival. An avant-garde artist/director named Milton Glantz, played by CSI's Paul Guilfoyle, takes first prize for his violent erotic film Death and the Lady. He's interrupted by a young man named Knox, played by Michael David Morrison, who yells at him that he's a murderer. According to Knox, Death and the Lady is a snuff film. Crockett and Tubbs interview Knox, who worked on the film. The police had already investigated the production based on an earlier accusation from Knox and had found nothing to suggest that the film's lead actress had been murdered during filming. Crockett thinks Knox has been hired by Glantz to tell a wild story to generate some free publicity for the film, but Tubbs thinks the story is worth investigating, so Castillo suggests they check it out. And then there's a scene where the entire Vice Department goes gooey over a cute cat that had stored away in a box of evidence. There's no real reason for this scene to exist, but I like cats, and it's fun seeing Castillo almost crack a smile, so I'm glad it does. Something that the internet tells me is the aggro mix of Depeche Mode's Never Let Me Down Again plays while Crockett talks with Glantz, who is indulging in some performance art involving wrapping homeless men in saran wrap and painting them with red paint. He tells Crockett that the star of Death and the Lady is an actress named Laurie Swan, and he suggests Crockett try to find her at a peep show. Tubbs interviews crew members who worked on the Death and the Lady shoot, all of whom doubt anyone was really murdered during filming, but none of them worked on the day the murder scene was filmed. While The Story Never Ends by Naked Prey plays, Crockett and Tubbs visit a peep show and talk with Laurie, who is played by Drugstore Cowboy's Kelly Lynch, and who is very much alive. With Knox's story thoroughly debunked, the district attorney, who is played by the late great Miguel Ferrer of RoboCop and Twin Peaks and a million other projects I've loved, stops by to confirm the investigation is closed. Crockett watches Death and the Lady, though, and when he sees the murdered actress on screen, he fully believes he's watching a corpse. Crockett and Tubbs visit a porn aficionado who tells them everything he knows about Laurie Swan, including that she starred in an earlier film by Glantz called Twins, which co-starred an actress who looks a whole lot like Laurie, who turns out to be an art student named Amy Ryder. Posing as an art student, Crockett drops by Amy Ryder's apartment and talks to her sister Jill, who is played by Penelope Ann Miller. Miller is known for films like Carlito's Way and The Freshman, and she also co-starred with Don Johnson in 1989's Dead Bang, and she was rumored to be romantically involved with Johnson during this time, even though he was romantically attached to Barbra Streisand. All of that should probably just be filed away in a big folder that says things that might have happened in the 80s. Jill reassures Crockett that Amy is alive and well. Crockett and Tubbs crash one of Glantz's parties where Depeche Mode's Pleasure Little Treasure plays. This episode is hitting the Depeche Mode pretty hard, and I have to say I highly approve. They ask Glantz about Amy Ryder. Glantz admits that due to scheduling issues he used a double for Laurie Swan during the murder scene, but denies that it was Amy Ryder. He introduces them to the woman he claims is the real double, an actress named Margot Franck, who is also played by Kelly Lynch. Crockett has some pretty judgmental opinions about pornography, which surprises Tubbs, so he stops by the boat at night to check in on him. Crockett tells him about an incident in high school in which a student had a sexual encounter with a number of football players, and one of them took a Polaroid and hung it in the boys' locker room without the girls' knowledge. And Crockett's always felt guilty for not taking it down. We've seen before in Season 1's Evan that Crockett judges himself very harshly for inaction. Crockett studies the film footage of Death and the Lady and compares the lab numbers printed on the frames, which indicate that the footage with the murder was filmed in the same chronological order as the rest of the film and not at a different time in a different location with a different actress, as Glantz had claimed. Crockett drops by Amy's apartment again to talk to Jill. She's frightened and refuses to talk to him about Amy, so Crockett hauls her and her father down to Vice headquarters. He forces them to watch the murder scene in Death and the Lady. Jill breaks down into sobs and confesses the truth. Amy was dying of cancer and had only a few weeks to live, so she agreed to be murdered on film for a big chunk of money that she was going to use to pay her dad's medical bills. Crockett and Tubbs arrest Glantz, but due to the complicated nature of the case, the DA doesn't think he could build a successful case for homicide, so Glantz walks. So while The Edge of Town by the Truth plays, Crockett drives through dark city streets and ends up at Glantz's home, where he beats the crap out of Glantz before stealing unfurling his Adult Film Awards trophy and leaving. It's a very dark scene. I raised a flag about Crockett's forays into unprovoked violence back in season 3, particularly in Forgive Us Our Debts, because viewers were clearly not expected to find the scene where Crockett beats and threatens a confession out of protected witness Barkley out of character for him. The scene is shot in a very straightforward manner. Crockett gets the result he wants with no repercussions for his behavior, and the scene ends with a lighthearted joke about how Barkley's wife is really good in the sack. My take on Forgive Us Our Debts is that it was leading us to the conclusion that, hey, sometimes good cops have to act in a violent and unlawful manner to get the results they want. That's just the nature of the job. Here we've got Crockett acting above the law and beating the crap out of someone again, but from the way the scene is scripted and staged and filmed, it's clear viewers are being led to a very different conclusion than what we were supposed to draw in Forgive Us Our Debts. Here, everything about the scene, the dialogue, the staging, the lighting, the music, is dark and very dramatic and very, very ominous. It's not that we're intended to disapprove of Crockett's behavior necessarily, because this episode builds a strong case that Glantz had it coming to him. But we are expected to take note of his behavior and, more importantly, to realize that something has changed with Crockett. I really love this episode. There are some dark yet subtle things at play with it, like the way that Glantz, who is a brilliant artist but also might be a psychopath in a way that's inextricably linked to his art, suspects he's found a kindred spirit in Crockett, even though Crockett has a visceral negative reaction to Glantz. And that's very interesting. There's a darkness to Crockett this season that will fully emerge by the season finale, and this episode is dropping a big juicy taste of what's to come. It's also a beautiful episode to watch. It's filmed and lit in a very cold and stylized manner, which works beautifully with the subject matter, i.e. eroticized violence as a commercial product. It's a very striking, cool, unsettling episode, and I'm giving it 5 flamingos. Join me next time when Miami Vice continues to get weird with an episode about cryogenics. Many people consider season 4 the weakest season, and I'm not gonna lie, there are some low points on our horizon, but weird and bad Miami Vice is always so much more interesting to watch than safe and dull Miami Vice, so I am here for it. I hope you are too, and I will see you here next time. Goodbye.